Captain Lee Dabin wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished loading the last cargo container into his ship. The metal box was heavy, filled with rare minerals from the outer colonies. His back ached, but the work paid well enough to keep his small freight vessel running. Another delivery to Kepler Station, he muttered to himself, checking the manifest on his tablet. The numbers looked good. 3 more runs like this, and he could afford to repair the faulty air recycler that had been making strange noises for weeks. Dabin had been running cargo for 15 years now. It was honest work, quiet work, nothing like his old job. He tried not to think about those days anymore. The COM system crackled to life. Freight vessel Aurora. This is Kepler Station. Control. You are cleared for docking bay 7. Welcome back, Captain Lee. Copy that. Control. Aurora inbound. Dabin settled into his pilot's seat and guided the ship toward the massive space station. Kepler 7 was a neutral trading post, built at the crossroads of 3 major shipping lanes. Ships from dozens of different species docked here every day. As he approached, Dabin could see the familiar mix of vessels. The long, sleek ships of the Altarian Republic. The cube-shaped transports of the Vorthan Empire. The organic-looking craft of the Zelani Collective. And scattered among them, a few human ships like his own. Not many humans traveled the galaxy anymore. Most stayed in their own systems, content with their quiet lives. The old treaty made sure of that. After docking, Dabin made his way through the station's corridors. The artificial gravity felt good after hours in zero. He passed aliens of all kinds, some walking on 2 legs like humans, others floating in mechanical suits, a few that looked like walking plants. They all nodded politely when they saw him. Humans were welcome here, but they kept to themselves. Mostly, everyone knew the rules. Dabin found his usual spot in the station's cantina, a small table near the back where he could watch the crowd. The blue-skinned bartender, a Zelani named Koro, brought him his regular drink without being asked. "How's business?" Captain Koro asked, his voice making the musical sounds that all Zelani had. "Can't complain," Dabin replied. "Steady work, steady pay." "That's good, peaceful is good." Koro's eyes flickered with something that might have been relief. "Peace is what we all want." "Yes." Dabin nodded and took a sip of his drink. Peace was good. The galaxy had been peaceful for 200 years now, ever since the Treaty of Terran Exclusion was signed. No major wars, no system-wide conflicts, just trade, diplomacy, and the occasional border dispute that got solved with words instead of weapons. Across the cantina, Dabin noticed a woman sitting alone at a corner table. She was human, with short black hair and the kind of focused expression that came from years of study. She wore the plain gray uniform of a research scientist. Their eyes met for a moment. She looked familiar, but Dabin couldn't place her. The woman seemed to recognize him too, because she got up and walked over to his table. "Excuse me," she said, her voice polite but curious. "Are you Captain Lee Dabin, from the old 5th Fleet?" Dabin's drink suddenly tasted bitter. "I'm just a cargo hauler now, Miss Dr. Park Sola. I'm a xenobiologist, stationed here for research." She sat down without waiting for an invitation. "I've read about you. The Battle of Proxima Ridge, the Vorthon siege of Haven Colony. That was a long time ago," Dabin said quietly, "before the treaty. 203 years ago, to be exact." Dr. Park leaned forward. "I study the biological differences between species. It's fascinating work. Did you know that humans are the only species in the galaxy with completely carbon-based neural networks?" Dabin shrugged. "I didn't know that mattered. It might not, but it's interesting." Dr. Park smiled. "Most galactic species have silicon-based neural pathways. Some have hybrid systems. But humans are unique enough to be banned from fighting wars," Dabin said, and immediately regretted it. He didn't like talking about the old days. Dr. Park's expression grew serious. The treaty wasn't just about humans being banned. It was about creating lasting peace, and it worked. Look around you, dozens of species trading together, working together. No one's been to war in 2 centuries. "Yeah," Dabin agreed, "it worked." But as he said it, he felt a strange unease. Something was wrong with the cantina. The usual noise of conversation had dropped to whispers. Aliens were gathering around the news displays, their faces showing fear and confusion. Koro, the bartender, came over to their table, his blue skin pale with worry. "Captain, Doctor, you should see this." The news feeds from the Altarian Republic. Dabin and Dr. Park followed him to the main display. The screen showed images that made no sense at first. Altarian ships floating dead in space, colonies with no signs of life, empty cities on planets that should have been bustling with activity. The news anchor, a tall Altarian with the crystal-like features of his species, spoke in a voice tight with fear. "The attacks began 3 days ago. Kethian forces used some kind of new weapon. Our defense fleets simply stopped. The ships are intact, but the crews are paralyzed. We don't understand how it works." More images flashed on the screen. Kethian warships, black and angular, moving through Altarian space without opposition. Planets surrendering without a fight. The Kethian hegemony, a militaristic empire from the galaxy's outer rim, was conquering star systems faster than anyone thought possible. 3 systems have fallen, the anchor continued. Millions of Altarians are dead or missing. The Galactic Defense Fleet has been called in, but early reports suggest their ships are suffering the same fate. The weapon affects all neural networks, causing immediate paralysis and death within hours. Dr. Park grabbed Dabin's arm. Did you hear that? Silicon-based neural networks. That's almost every species in the galaxy. Almost, Dabin said quietly, understanding dawning on him. Around them, the cantina had gone completely silent. Every alien in the room was staring at the 2 humans with a mixture of fear and something else, something that looked like hope. The Kethian bioweapon won't work on humans, Dr. Park whispered. Our neural networks are completely different. Dabin felt something stirring in his chest, something he hadn't felt in 200 years. It was like a sleeping part of his mind was waking up. Old instincts, old knowledge, old skills that he'd tried so hard to forget. Captain Koro said softly, your people. They might be the only ones who can fight this enemy. Dabin looked at the images on the screen. Dead ships, empty worlds, an enemy that could paralyze entire fleets with a single weapon. The treaty that had kept peace for 2 centuries was about to be tested in a way no one had imagined. We'll see, he said, but inside his head, strategies were already forming. Battle plans, tactics, solutions. The old soldier was waking up, and Lee Dabin wasn't sure if that was good or terrifying, maybe both. 3 days after the first reports from Altarian space, Captain Lee Dabin couldn't sleep. His small quarters on Kepler Station felt too quiet, too safe. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the images from the news feeds. Dead ships floating in space, empty cities on conquered worlds. He got up and walked to the observation deck. Through the large windows, he could see the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kethian fleet was moving deeper into Altarian territory. The latest reports said they had taken 5 systems now. The Galactic Defense Fleet had tried to stop them twice. Both times, their ships had simply stopped working. When the bioweapon hit, can't sleep either. Dabin turned to see Dr. Park Sola standing in the doorway. She looked tired, her usually neat hair messy from running her hands through it. Too much to think about, he said. Dr. Park joined him at the window. I've been running tests all day. The bioweapon is incredibly smart. It targets the silicon pathways in neural networks and causes them to shut down completely. The affected beings fall into a coma first, then die within 6 hours. And it doesn't work on humans, not at all. Our carbon-based brains are completely different. We might as well be from another universe as far as that weapon is concerned. She paused. Dabin, I've been thinking about what you said. About your old military service. Dabin stiffened. I told you, that was a long time ago. The 5th Fleet was famous. I looked up the records. You were part of the unit that ended the Vorthan War in 3 weeks. The Vorthans surrendered completely after the Battle of Proxima Ridge. We did what we had to do. What exactly did you do? Dr. Park asked quietly. The official records are classified, but the results speak for themselves. The Vorthans went from a major military power to complete surrender in less than a month. That's not normal warfare. Before Dabin could answer, the station's communication system crackled to life. Attention, all personnel. Please report to the main assembly hall immediately. This is not a drill. The assembly hall was packed with beings from dozens of species. Dabin and Dr. Park found seats near the back. At the front of the room, a tall figure in an Altarian military uniform stood at the podium. His crystal-like features were dim with exhaustion. I am Admiral Cho Wubin of the Altarian Republic Navy, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the room. I bring news from the front lines. The Kethian advance has not slowed. 7 systems have now fallen. Our latest estimates suggest that if they maintain their current pace, they will reach the core systems within 2 weeks. Murmurs of fear rippled through the crowd. 2 weeks was not much time. The Galactic Defense Fleet has suffered catastrophic losses. Every ship that has engaged the Kethian forces has been disabled by their bioweapon. We have lost over 300 vessels and their crews. The Admiral paused, looking around the room. His eyes stopped on the human section. Which brings me to why I am here. The Altarian Republic is formally requesting military assistance from the human colonies. The room erupted in shocked voices. Dabin heard dozens of different languages all expressing the same disbelief. A human next to him whispered, "That's impossible. The treaty forbids it." Admiral Cho raised his hand for silence. "I know what you're thinking. The Treaty of Terran Exclusion has kept peace for 2 centuries. But that treaty was written for a different time. The Kethian bioweapon changes everything." He activated a holographic display showing the galactic map. Red zones mark the conquered Altarian systems. This weapon targets silicon-based neural networks that includes 97% of all sapient species in the galaxy. The Kethians have found a way to turn our greatest strength, our interconnected neural networks, into our greatest weakness. The display zoomed in on human space. Humans are the only major species with purely carbon-based neural networks. You are immune to this weapon. You may be the only ones who can fight it. An elderly Vorthan in the front row stood up. Admiral, with respect, humans were banned from warfare for good reasons. The last time they fought, the results were disturbing. I was there, Admiral Cho said quietly. My grandfather was Admiral Cho Sungmin, who served alongside human forces in the border conflicts. He told me stories about human tactics, about how they fought. The Admiral's hologram switched to show historical footage, old battle records from the Terran-Vorthan conflict. Humans don't fight like the rest of us. They don't seek temporary advantage or limited victory. They fight to end conflicts permanently. Dabin felt Dr. Park looking at him, but he kept his eyes on the display. The footage showed human ships using tactics that seemed impossible, coordinated strikes that happened across multiple systems simultaneously, psychological warfare that made entire enemy fleets surrender without firing a shot. The Vorthans were not defeated by superior firepower, Admiral Cho continued. They were defeated by superior thinking. Human military commanders didn't just win battles, they solved the problem of war itself. A Zilani delegate stood up, and that's exactly why they were banned. Human solutions are too complete, too final. They don't leave room for negotiation or compromise. Perhaps, the Admiral agreed, but right now, we need a final solution. The Kethians are not interested in negotiation. They want to conquer the galaxy, and they have the weapon to do it. The room fell silent. On the display, the red zones marking Kethian conquest seemed to pulse like a spreading infection. I am here to formally request that the Galactic Council suspend the Treaty of Terran Exclusion, Admiral Cho announced. We need human military assistance, and we need it now. An older human woman stood up. She wore the simple robes of a diplomatic envoy. I am Ambassador Kim Nari, representing the human colonies. Admiral, your request is unprecedented. My people have lived in peace for 2 centuries. Most of us have never seen war, but some of you have. The Admiral replied, looking directly at Dabin, and more importantly, you remember how to fight. It's not something humans forget. Ambassador Kim looked uncomfortable. Even if we wanted to help, the human colonial governments would never agree to this. The treaty isn't just galactic law, it's the foundation of our peaceful society. Then perhaps it's time to change, Dr. Park said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood up, her face pale but determined. I've been studying the bot weapon. It's not just a weapon, it's a tool of extinction. If the Kethians win, every silicon-based species will be enslaved or dead, including humans, eventually. Humans are immune, someone called out. For now, Dr. Park replied. But the Kethians are smart. They'll find a way to adapt their weapon. And even if they don't, what kind of galaxy will be left? A galaxy where one species rules over the corpses of all the others. Admiral Cho nodded. Dr. Park is correct. This isn't just about saving the Altarian Republic. It's about saving galactic civilization itself. The room erupted in arguments. Some delegates demanded immediate action. Others insisted the treaty must be maintained at all costs. In the middle of it all, Dabin sat quietly, feeling something growing inside him. Something he had buried for 2 centuries. It was the urge to solve problems, to end threats permanently, to protect innocent beings from those who would hurt them. The old soldier was waking up, and this time, Lee Dabin wasn't sure he could put it back to sleep. As the arguments continued around him, Dabin stood up and walked toward the exit. Dr. Park followed him. Where are you going? She asked. To send a message, he replied. To some old friends who might remember how to fight. The human colonial governments will never approve this. Dabin paused at the door. Then maybe we don't ask for approval. Maybe we just do what needs to be done. Behind them, the debate raged on, but in Dabin's mind, the decision was already made. The galaxy was in danger, and humans were the only ones who could save it. The question wasn't whether they would fight. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what human warfare really meant. 2 days after Admiral Cho's request, Captain Lee Dabin stood in his ship's cargo bay, staring at boxes he hadn't opened in 200 years. The storage containers were sealed with military-grade locks, hidden behind false walls in his vessel's hull. Inside were things he had hoped never to use again. His fingers trembled as he entered the old access codes. The first box opened with a soft hiss. Inside, wrapped in protective cloth, was his old uniform, the black and silver of the 5th Fleet Special Operations Division. It still fit perfectly. The second box contained his weapons, not the crude blasters that most species used, but precision instruments designed for human hands. The weight of his old sidearm felt natural in his grip, like greeting an old friend. The third box held his personal files, mission reports, tactical manuals, the accumulated knowledge of a lifetime spent learning how to end conflicts permanently. I thought I might find you here. Dabin turned to see Dr. Park Sola standing in the doorway. She looked at the open boxes, the uniform, the weapons. Her face was pale, having second thoughts. He asked. Every minute, she admitted. But then I think about what happens if we do nothing. She held up a datapad. The Kethians took another system last night, Valera Prime. 2 billion lived there. The planet is silent now. No communications, no life signs. The Kethian bioweapon doesn't just disable ships, it can be deployed against entire populations. Dabin felt something cold settle in his chest. Genocide. Complete extinction of silicon-based life forms. The Kethians are cleaning house, preparing the galaxy for their own species. Dr. Park set down the pad. Dabin, I've been studying the old records. The real records, not the sanitized versions, in the public archives. What did you find? The truth about the Treaty of Terran Exclusion. It wasn't signed because humans were too violent. It was signed because humans were too effective. She paused. The Vorthan War didn't end because you defeated their military. It ended because you made them realize that continuing to fight meant their complete extinction as a species. Dabin picked up one of his old tactical manuals. The pages were filled with strategies and concepts that most species couldn't comprehend. We gave them a choice. Surrender completely or face total elimination. They chose surrender. And the galaxy decided that was too scary to allow again. Maybe they were right. Dabin looked at his reflection in the weapon's polished surface. Maybe we are too dangerous to let loose. Before Dr. Park could respond, the ship's communication system activated. Captain Lee, this is Kepler Station. Control, we have an emergency transmission for you. Priority Alpha. Dabin and Dr. Park rushed to the bridge. The main screen showed the face of a young human woman in a military uniform. Her eyes were wide with fear and anger. This is Colonel Zhang Minho, commanding the defense forces of New Terra Colony, she said, her voice tight with emotion. We are under attack. The Kethians have found us. The screen switched to show external views of the colony. Kethian ships, black and angular, were descending through the atmosphere. Energy weapons struck the colonial settlements. But these weren't the paralysis weapons used against other species. They're not using the bioweapon, Dr. Park observed. They don't need to, Dabin replied grimly. They know it won't work on humans. So they're using conventional weapons instead. Colonel Zhang's voice continued over the images of destruction. We've lost contact with the outer settlements. The Kethians are targeting civilians. They're trying to kill every human on the planet. The screen showed Kethian ground forces moving through the colony. They wore full battle armor and carried heavy weapons. They weren't trying to conquer New Terra, they were trying to exterminate it. We need help, Colonel Zhang said. Any human ships in the area, please respond. We can't hold them off much longer. Dabin's hands moved over the control panel before he realized what he was doing. His fingers entered navigation coordinates with practiced precision. Dr. Park, you need to get off my ship. What? Why? Because I'm going to New Terra, and where I'm going, civilians don't belong. Dr. Park grabbed his arm. Dabin, you can't face an entire Kethian fleet alone. I'm not alone. He gestured to the communication panel. What? The CUM system crackled to life with dozens of voices. Human voices, responding to Colonel Zhang's distress call. This is Captain Odongwu, formerly of the 3rd Assault Fleet. I'm 3 hours out from New Terra. Captain Nam Xianwu here. My ship isn't much, but I remember how to fight. Dr. Lim Yayoso, aboard the research vessel Harmony. I'm not military, but I've got medical supplies and a few ideas about those Kethian weapons. More voices joined in. Cargo haulers, research scientists, traders, colonists, all of them human. All of them responding to the call. How many? Dr. Park asked. Dabin checked his sensors. 43 ships so far, and more coming. That's not an organized military force. It's just a bunch of civilians and cargo ships. No, Dabin said quietly. It's something else. Something the galaxy forgot about. He activated his own transmitter. This is Captain Lee Dabin, 5th Fleet Special Operations. To all human vessels responding to New Terra, form up on my position. We're going to coordinate our approach. Dabin. Captain O's voice came through the CUM. It's been a long time. Do you still remember the old protocols? Like riding a bicycle. Dongwu transmitting tactical package now. Dabin's fingers flew over the controls, sending encrypted data to the other ships, battle plans, coordination protocols, strategic assessments, information that had been classified for 2 centuries. Dr. Park watched in amazement as the scattered human vessels began to move in perfect formation. How are they doing that? Most of these people have never served in the military. They don't need to, Dabin explained. Human military doctrine isn't just about training, it's about thinking, about seeing patterns and solving problems. Every human has the potential to be a soldier, they just need someone to show them how. On the screen, the human fleet was taking shape. 43 ships of different sizes and types, moving together like parts of a single organism. Cargo haulers became troop transports, research vessels turned into electronic warfare platforms. Even the smallest personal ships found roles in the overall strategy. This is impossible, Dr. Park whispered. You're turning civilians into a military force in real time. We're not turning them into anything, Dabin corrected. We're just helping them remember what they already are. The journey to New Terra took 6 hours. During that time, Dabin watched something remarkable happen. The human civilians began to change. Their voices over the comm became sharper, more focused. They started using military terminology without being taught. They developed tactics and strategies that seemed to come from instinct rather than training. Dr. Lim Yensu, the research scientist, announced that she had figured out how to reverse the Kethian bot. Captain Nam Xianwu, who had been a farmer before the crisis, outlined a plan to use asteroid mining equipment as improvised weapons. Captain Odongu began coordinating ground assault teams made up of colonists and traders. "It's like watching a sleeping giant wake up," Dr. Park said. "That's exactly what it is," Dabin replied. "The galaxy spent 2 centuries believing that humans had become peaceful, but we didn't become peaceful. We just stopped fighting. There's a difference." When they reached New Terra, the Kethian fleet was in orbit, bombarding the surface. 12 heavy cruisers and twice as many escort vessels, a force that could have conquered most star systems. "All ships, this is Captain Lee Dabin," announced. "Remember, we're not here to fight a battle. We're here to solve a problem. The problem is that the Kethians think they can attack humans without consequences." "What's the solution?" Captain O asked. Dabin looked at the enemy fleet on his screen. His mind was already working through possibilities, calculating outcomes, planning moves that would end the conflict permanently. "We're going to teach them that they're wrong," he said, "and we're going to make sure they never forget the lesson." The human fleet moved toward the enemy, and for the first time in 2 centuries, the galaxy was about to remember why humans had been banned from warfare. It wasn't because they were too violent, it was because they were too good at it. Captain Lee Dabin watched from his bridge as the human fleet moved against the Kethian forces. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for centuries to come. If anyone was brave enough to study it, the Kethians had expected a standard engagement, ship-to-ship, combat, energy weapons, shields, and armor. They had 12 heavy cruisers and 24 escort vessels. Against them, 43 human ships, most of them converted cargo haulers and research vessels. It should have been a massacre. It was just not the way the Kethians expected. "All ships, begin Phase 1, Dabin announced. The human fleet split into 7 groups. Each group moved in a different direction, surrounding the Kethian formation. But they weren't moving to attack positions. They were moving to communication positions, broadcasting on all frequencies. Dr. Lim Yensu reported from her research ship, transmitting the surrender offer in Kethian language. The offer was simple: leave New Terra immediately, or face complete destruction. The Kethians had 30 seconds to decide. "They're not responding," Captain Odongwu reported. "Kethian commander is ordering his ships to attack." "Then we proceed to Phase 2, Dabin said calmly. What happened next looked like chaos to outside observers. The human ships began moving in seemingly random patterns. They fired their weapons at empty space. They released cargo containers that drifted toward the Kethian fleet. The Kethians opened fire, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. Their energy beams struck several human vessels, but the damage was minimal. The humans had positioned themselves so that the Kethian ships would hit each other as much as they hit their targets. Phase 3, Dabin announced. The cargo containers that had been drifting toward the Kethian fleet suddenly exploded. But these weren't bombs, they were electronic warfare devices, filling space with interference that disrupted Kethian sensors and communications. Blind and confused, the Kethian ships began firing wildly. In their panic, they struck their own vessels more than the human ones. "This is insane," Dr. Park whispered from her position at the sensor station. "You're making them destroy themselves." Phase 4, Dabin continued, ignoring her comment. Now, the human ships moved in for real attacks. But they didn't target the Kethian weapons or shields. They targeted the ship's engines and communication arrays. Within minutes, the entire Kethian fleet was disabled, floating helplessly in space. Phase 5, Dabin announced. This was when the real horror began. The human ships didn't destroy the disabled Kethian vessels. Instead, they began boarding them. Small teams of humans, many of them former colonists and traders, cut through the Kethian hulls and entered the enemy ships. The Kethians, inside their vessels, waited for the humans to kill them. Instead, the humans did something much worse. They began studying everything. Ship designs, weapon systems, communication codes, star charts, showing Kethian territory. "Captain Nam, to all ships," came the voice of the former farmer. "I've got their fleet coordination protocols. Transmitting to all vessels now. Captain, oh here. Found their bioweapon manufacturing data. Dr. Lim, you need to see this. This is Dr. Lim. Analyzing the weapon now. I think I can revert it to work on Kethian physiology instead." Dr. Park stared at the display, showing the boarding operations. "You're not just defeating them, you're learning everything about them. That's how humans fight," Dabin explained. "We don't just win battles. We solve the underlying problem. The problem isn't just these ships, it's the entire Kethian military structure. Within an hour, the humans had downloaded every piece of information from the Kethian fleet. Ship designs, weapon specifications, star charts, communication codes, military protocols, and most importantly, the complete data on the bio-weapon. Dr. Lim Yensu's voice came over the comm, excited and terrified at the same time. Captain Lee, I've got it. I've reversed the bioweapon. It now targets Kethian neural networks instead of silicon-based ones. How long to manufacture it? Dabin asked. With the equipment on these captured ships. 6 hours for the first batch, 12 hours for mass production. Do it. Dr. Park grabbed Dabin's arm. You're talking about genocide. Using their own weapon against them. I'm talking about ending a war, Dabin replied coldly. The Kethians made this choice when they decided to exterminate entire populations. We're just returning the favor. The human fleet began moving toward Kethian space, towing the captured vessels behind them. As they traveled, more human ships joined them. Word had spread through the human colonies about New Terra. Volunteers were coming from every human settlement in the galaxy. By the time they reached the first Kethian system, the human fleet numbered over 300 ships, still mostly converted civilian vessels, but now they were coordinated by a command structure that seemed to appear from nowhere. How are they organizing so quickly? Dr. Park asked. Human military doctrine is based on distributed command. Dabin explained. Every human can think strategically if they need to. We don't need a big command structure because every ship can make intelligent decisions on its own. The first Kethian system they encountered was heavily defended. Orbital stations, defense platforms, and a fleet of over 200 warships. It should have been impossible for the humans to take it. It fell in 3 hours. The humans didn't attack the defenses directly. Instead, they used the captured communication codes to send false orders to the Kethian ships. They made the defense platforms think they were under attack by their own fleet. They caused the orbital stations to shut down their own shields. When the Kethian forces finally realized what was happening, half their fleet was already disabled by their own weapons. The rest surrendered when the humans demonstrated their new bioweapon by testing it on a single Kethian patrol ship. This is General Han Juan, came a new voice over the comm. I'm taking overall command of human forces. All ships, prepare for Phase 2 of the campaign. Who is General Han? Dr. Park asked. She used to run a mining operation on Titan. Dabin replied. Now she's the supreme commander of the largest human military force in 2 centuries. That's how fast humans adapt to necessity. The second Kethian system fell in 2 hours, the third in 90 minutes. By the time they reached the fourth system, the Kethian forces were retreating without fighting. They're running, Dr. Park observed. No, Dabin corrected. They're trying to regroup. But it won't work. We have their communication codes, their star charts, their tactical manuals. We know where they're going before they do. The human fleet split into dozens of smaller groups, each one targeting a different Kethian system. They moved with precision that seemed impossible for such a large force. But every human ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. This isn't warfare, Dr. Park said, watching the tactical displays. This is extermination. This is problem solving. Dabin replied. The Kethians created a problem when they decided to conquer the galaxy. We're solving it permanently. Over the next week, the human forces systematically dismantled the Kethian hegemony. They didn't just defeat the military, they captured the political leaders, seized the industrial facilities, and took control of the communication networks. The Kethians tried to negotiate. They offered to withdraw from Altarian space, to pay reparations, to sign peace treaties. The humans ignored all of it. Why won't you accept their surrender? Dr. Park asked. Because surrender isn't a permanent solution. Dabin explained. If we let them rebuild, they'll try again in 50 years. Or 100. The only way to permanently solve this problem is to make sure they never have the ability to threaten anyone again. On the 8th day of the campaign, the last Kethian fleet surrendered. The hegemony's homeworld sent a message of complete and unconditional capitulation. They offered to dismantle their entire military, to submit to human oversight, to do whatever was necessary to survive. What happens now? Dr. Park asked. Dabin looked at the tactical display showing human forces throughout Kethian space. 300 ships had become 3,000 as more humans joined the fight. The entire Kethian hegemony was now under human control. Now we decide what to do with them, he said, and we make sure that no one else ever makes the mistake of thinking they can attack humans without consequences. The galaxy watched in horror as the humans completed their campaign. In 8 days, they had gone from a banned species to the dominant military force in the galaxy. They had solved the Kethian problem permanently, and everyone began to understand why humans had been banned from warfare in the first place. They were too good at it. 3 months after the fall of the Kethian hegemony, Captain Lee Dabin stood on the bridge of the GSV Harmony, the first joint human galactic vessel ever built. Through the viewports he could see the ruins of the Kethian capital world being rebuilt not as a military stronghold, but as a peaceful colony under galactic supervision. The last Kethian war criminal was sentenced today. Dr. Park Sola reported, reading from her tablet. The tribunal gave him life imprisonment for genocide. That's all of them accounted for. Dabin nodded. The trials had been thorough and fair. Every Kethian leader responsible for the bioweapon attacks had faced justice. The rest of the Kethian population was being relocated to smaller worlds, where they could rebuild their society without military capability. Any word from the Galactic Council? He asked. Ambassador Kim Nari sent a message this morning. The new treaty is almost ready for signing. They're calling it the Terran Integration Accords. Dabin smiled slightly. Integration. Not exclusion this time. No, not exclusion, but not complete freedom either. Dr. Park sat down at the science station. The treaty designates humans as final option forces. We can only be deployed when conventional warfare has failed and extinctional-level threats emerge. Sounds fair, Dabin said. We proved we're too effective for ordinary conflicts. Through the CUM system, they could hear the voices of the mixed crew working throughout the ship. Humans, Altarians, Vorthans, Zolani, and a dozen other species, all working together, all learning from each other. Do you think it will work? Dr. Park asked. This new arrangement, it has to, Dabin replied. The galaxy saw what humans can do when we're pushed too far. Nobody wants to see that again. A young voice called out from the navigation station. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's from the Colonial Council. Put it through, Dabin said. The main screen showed an elderly human woman, in formal robes. Captain Lee, this is Chancellor Yun Taiho, of the Colonial Council. I have news from home. Dabin recognized the name. Chancellor Yun had been one of the strongest voices against human military involvement. What can I do for you, Chancellor? I'm calling to officially thank you, she said, her voice heavy with emotion. When you left Kepler Station 3 months ago, many of us thought you were making a terrible mistake. We thought you would bring back the old days of war and violence. And now we understand that you saved us all, not just from the Kethians, but from ourselves. We had become so focused on maintaining peace that we forgot why peace was worth preserving. The Chancellor paused, looking directly at Dabin. Through the screen, the Colonial Council has voted to accept the new treaty. Humans will take their place as the galaxy's final option. Forces, we will be the ones others call when there is no other choice. That's a heavy responsibility, Dabin said. Yes, it is. But we've learned that some responsibilities can't be avoided. The galaxy needs protectors, and we're the only ones who can do the job properly. After the transmission ended, Dabin and Dr. Park stood in comfortable silence. Around them, the ship continued its patrol of the former Kethian space, ensuring that the peace held. I've been thinking about what you said, Dr. Park said finally, about humans being too good at warfare. I think I understand now what that really means. What's that? It's not that we're more violent than other species. It's that we're more committed to permanent solutions. When humans decide to solve a problem, we don't stop until it's completely solved. That can be dangerous, Dabin admitted. Yes, but it can also be necessary. The Kethians weren't going to stop with just conquest. They wanted to exterminate every other species in the galaxy. Someone had to stop them permanently. A new voice joined the conversation. Captain, this is Lieutenant Nam Sionwu reporting. From the security station, the former farmer had adapted well to military life. We're detecting 3 ships approaching our position. They're flying Altarian colors. On screen, Dabin ordered. The display showed 3 sleek Altarian vessels approaching the Harmony. As they got closer, Dabin could see that they were flying in perfect formation, a sign of respect in Altarian culture. This is Admiral Cho Wubin, came a familiar voice, requesting permission to come aboard. Permission granted. Admiral, welcome to the Harmony. An hour later, Admiral Cho stood in the ship's main conference room with Dabin, Dr. Park, and several other officers. The Altarian looked much better than he had during the dark days of the Kethian invasion. I wanted to thank you personally, Admiral Cho said, and to make a formal request. What kind of request? Dabin asked. The Altarian Republic would like to establish a joint military training program with human forces. We want to learn from you. Dr. Park looked surprised. You want to learn human military tactics, not just tactics, the Admiral replied. We want to learn how to think like humans do, how to see problems clearly and solve them completely. The Kethian invasion showed us that our old ways of fighting weren't enough. That's dangerous knowledge, Dabin warned. Human military thinking changes how you see the world. Once you start thinking in terms of permanent solutions, it's hard to go back. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs, Admiral Cho said. Maybe we've been thinking too small for too long. Maybe it's time to learn how to solve problems instead of just managing them. Over the following days, representatives from a dozen different species visited the Harmony. All of them had the same request. They wanted to learn from humans. Not just military tactics, but the human way of thinking about problems. This is unprecedented, Dr. Park observed as they watched a group of officers training with human instructors. For 2 centuries, the galaxy tried to contain human influence. Now they're asking us to teach them. Fear has a way of changing perspectives, Dabin replied. They saw what happened to the Cathians. They don't want to be on the wrong side of human problem solving. Is that what we are now? The galaxy's threat? No, Dabin said thoughtfully. We're the galaxy's insurance policy. We're the ones who step in when everything else fails. When the problems become too big for conventional solutions, months passed. The Harmony and other human vessels continued their patrols, ensuring that the peace held. The former Cathian territories were slowly being integrated into the galactic community. The bioweapon technology was completely destroyed, its creators scattered to distant worlds under close supervision. Report from the outer sectors, Lieutenant Nam announced during one of their regular briefings. All quiet. No signs of hostile activity. What about the Cathian survivors? Dr. Park asked. Adapting to civilian life, the rehabilitation programs are working. Most of them seem relieved to be free from their old military culture. Dabin nodded. The Cathian people weren't evil. They had been controlled by a military government that valued conquest above all else. With that government gone, they were slowly learning to live peacefully. Any word from the border regions? He asked. The Zilani Collective reports some unusual activity in the Void sector. Nam replied, nothing confirmed, but they're requesting a joint patrol mission. Set course for the Void sector, Dabin ordered. Let's take a look. As the Harmony changed course, Dabin reflected on how much had changed. 3 months ago, he had been a simple cargo hauler, trying to forget his military past. Now he was the captain of a joint species vessel, responsible for maintaining peace in a galaxy that had learned to fear human solutions. Do you think we did the right thing? Dr. Park asked as they watched the stars shift past the viewports. We did what was necessary, Dabin replied. The galaxy is safe. The Cathians are no longer a threat. Peace is maintained. But at what cost? The galaxy is afraid of us now. Fear can be a good thing, Dabin said. It keeps people from making stupid decisions. It makes them think twice before starting conflicts they can't finish. And if someone challenges us again, Dabin looked out at the stars, thinking of the thousands of human ships now patrolling the galaxy, thinking of the former farmers and scientists and traders who had become soldiers when necessity demanded it, thinking of the sleeping giant that was human military capability. Then they'll learn the same lesson the Cathians learned, he said quietly, that humans don't fight wars, we solve problems, and our solutions tend to be permanent. The ship continued its journey through the void, carrying its mixed crew toward whatever challenges awaited them. Behind them, the galaxy continued its peaceful existence, protected by the knowledge that somewhere out there, humans were watching. And if peace ever failed again, the humans would be ready to solve that problem too, permanently.